In this DRG segment, we are going to give you an inside look at the basics of some of the work done at our facilities.
Normally, the hard drives have covers over the screws, labels over the screws, because they don't want the consumer getting inside them. And typically, they'll use screws that are not standard screws. They try to use screws that use Torx heads, because a lot of times consumers will actually try to get into the hard drives, which is definitely not a good idea. Many hard drives will, if you just simply the act of taking the top cover off the hard drive will cause it to not work correctly anymore, unless you do it in a particular way. So it can be very damaging to the hard drive to just take the cover off if you really don't know what you're doing. What he's doing now is he's going to remove the head stack from this hard drive. Typical failure on a hard drive is that the heads will go bad. Usually the heads go bad because there's some kind of media damage. Occasionally the head just goes bad on its own. But what has to be done is the head stack has to be removed and replaced by another head stack, by a good head stack from a similar drive. There's many different kinds of drives, and for every different kind of drive, the technique that's used to remove the heads is different, because they're all designed mechanically different. Through many years of experience, you learn how each specific drive needs to be disassembled and reassembled. If you don't know how to do that, and if you haven't learned how to do that properly, you can severely damage the media in the process of removing the head stack. Okay, he's undoing all the screws and the connectors that it takes to remove the head stack. And the head stack is generally, when it gets pulled out, you'll see, but it's usually includes a stack of heads and also a flex cable that's attached to it, and some connectors that are then attached to the allow you to attach that head stack to the printed circuit board on the outside of the drive itself. Right now he's inspecting the heads to see if there's a crash on the hard drive. It's usually easier to tell whether there's a crash by actually looking for debris on the head surfaces themselves than it is on the platters, because most of the platters you can't see the surface except for the very top side of the top platter. What he's doing now is he's cleaning the head. Sometimes you can get the head working just by cleaning it. And that's what he's doing. He's got a lint-free Q-tip with a real fine point, and he's using alcohol to clean the head surfaces. Sometimes it's possible to get a head working by doing that. So he cleaned the heads, now he's inspecting it again. If he's satisfied that the heads have been cleaned properly, he'll then put that head stack back into the hard drive. Before he does that, he has to put paper between the heads because He has to spread the heads to get them back on the platters. In manufacturing, they use what's called head combs, because in manufacturing they only have to deal with a few different kinds of head stacks, but in the data recovery industry we deal with literally hundreds of different kinds of head stacks, and it's not really practical or possible to have a head comb for every kind of head stack. So we use the paper method of spreading the heads to load them back into the hard drive, because the paper method can be used on any kind of head stack. Head comb, basically what it does is it spreads the heads mechanically, so when you load the heads back onto the media, they're spread apart so it doesn't make contact with the media. The paper technique does basically the same thing, except it keeps paper between the head surface and the media surface during the time of loading the heads onto the media. The paper that he's using is vellum. Actually, it's a special kind of paper that will have no particles come off of it or any dust. Like normal paper would not work. Normal paper would be too rough and too many particles. So he's using the paper to just spread the heads, so when he reloads it back onto the platters, the heads don't make contact with the platters, and and the heads don't become damaged. So once the heads get onto the platters, he removes the paper, which he's doing there. And then, once all the paper's off there, voila, he's done. And then he rotates the motor, moves the heads back to the landing zone, and he's replaced the head stack. Now he has to put all the other parts back together, which, there's, depending on the drive, there could be many parts, or some drives there's very few parts. This happens to be a Samsung drive, and they have a very simple mechanical design, so there's really not a lot of different parts you have to replace when you replace a head stack. Other drives, specifically some of the notebook drives from Hitachi and Fujitsu, there's lots and lots of parts that you have to deal with.
Hard drives are extremely delicate precision instruments. Data recovery is an advanced process where only qualified, skilled disk storage professionals, such as those at Data Recovery Group, can properly evaluate and recover data from failed hard drives.
If your data is important to you, we recommend that you do not try and open or repair the drive, or this can result in permanent data loss. Visit datarecoverygroup.com for more information.